So every morning I wake up, brush my teeth, tie my shoes on tight. You can do crossword puzzles all day long or play golf or whatever the hell you want to do. Whether you're drawing something on a cave, about a mastodon hunt you were on with a bunch of hounds, or you're a social media influencer, whatever that is.
Well, when you talk to Chris, he seems like a backward country until you really talk to Chris and you realize this guy's got an incredible mind.
Just stand up in between them pines. It won't bother me. I'm white knuckling it and you're back there saying your prayers, which I don't blame you. We needed them.
You get this West Virginia one-liner that comes in out of left field that just makes everybody smile.
You couldn't grow a pea out there. There's not enough flat place here to play touch football. I'm not gonna play the Xbox or binge watch the Housewives or Orange. I'm taking my dogs in the woods.
Yeah, and he speaks in Hillbonics, you know.
It's like building a football for Brett Favre or something. You're like, I hope he likes it. A turkey's not gonna climb up this cliff and gobble at me. If it's got a trigger on it, we're looking at it, I guarantee you. Short of a WD can or a Windex bottle. You play golf, you play tennis, you play chess, checkers. I don't do any of that stuff. That's all we're doing. We're not curing cancer, we're not cracking chest.
He's a good old guy, yeah.
Make sure you tag me on Instagram.
Chris is an amazing guy in that he's a lifelong learner. He doesn't sit on his past success and go, this is the way we do it from now on. He's constantly innovating, constantly thinking of where do we have to be in a year and 2 years, and what are we doing today that gets us there.
John hired him, he came to work for us, and the company's done nothing but grow since he started.
Chris is an awesome human. What a great individual, you know, fantastic marketer, which goes without saying, but just a honest to God, down to earth person that you could trust with anything forever.
Fayette County's very rugged, very unique, straight up and down, but it's got some natural resources gems. I mean, if you're into whitewater, this is heaven. If you're into mountain biking or if you're into rock climbing, this is heaven. If you're into hunting and fishing, I mean, 4 minutes from my house, I can be what feels like to many folks in the middle of nowhere. I grew up in a community of storytellers. I mean, you go to the barber shop and you hear somebody catching a muskie, or somebody catching a walleye, or somebody killing a big buck out of ridge somewhere, and I was fascinated by their stories. So I knew that I could hunt and fish. It's the only thing that's really came natural, probably because I did it so much. But I knew I could tell a story, and I knew if I could take people into wild places and hear their stories, that I could connect to them, and I love people. So my brother and I started a company called the Mountain Connection, a guide and outfitter service. We're in the middle of nowhere on the Golly River. My farm is just upstream. A buddy of mine has a rafting company, and this is one of their overnight spots, so I kind of know the secret way in here. Brought you guys down just to see this. This is a very unique, absolutely in the middle of nowhere. We talk about my connection to nature. This is some of the best whitewater rafting in the world, but you're in the middle of nowhere. If I could drop a pin and show you on the map, it would just be a bunch of nothing. But to me, it's everything. I joined about every outdoor writers association you could to promote West Virginia and our way of life. And in doing so, I'd run into manufacturers. Well, when my kids got old enough to say, hey, Dad, you burned the biscuits, and my wife went back to school as a teacher, I thought, well, what am I gonna do now? I gotta figure out a way to monetize this. Nothing wrong with the state job, but I was looking for something a little bit more adventurous. And I decided to hang a shingle downtown Fayetteville called Ellis Communications. And at that time, my first client was a guy named John Veer that owned this little tiny trigger company called Timney, and I fell in love with his passion.
When Chris and I first met, It was just about one person tells two and two people tell four, and trying to get the idea of why a trigger matters out to people.
We built it telling one person at a time. When I first started talking about triggers, you know, triggers weren't called out in gun magazines. Every gun came with one. So I had to call people up and say, hey, do you know the benefits of having an aftermarket trigger, what it can do for accuracy, what it can do for your enjoyment with the firearm? Storytelling's been told since the beginning of time. Whether you took a piece of charcoal from the fire and you wrote on a wall in a cave that said, here's the big mastodon I killed and here's the 4 dogs I used to help me, or you put it in a magazine, you put it in a book, you put it in social media, it doesn't matter. Storytelling will always be around. Out of a buffalo backstrap. And I seasoned it with olive oil. And I put it in my Tina's grandmother's cast iron skillet. So this is Tina and I's go-to. Lean meat out of the freezer and roasted vegetables almost every day. I met Tina when I was 18, and she's been the love of my life ever since, and will be the love of the life for this lifetime and the next lifetime. So she has been through a lot, you know, a couple businesses, me traveling all over the world to hunt and fish. You know, obviously there's no manufacturers in West Virginia, or very few, so I never had any West Virginia clients. So I've always had to get on a plane and go someplace. You know, raising kids and a couple businesses later, she's been by my side, and I wouldn't do it without her, you know, and I couldn't do it without her, to be honest with you. So she's been the rock of the family, school teacher, great mom, we got wonderful kids, but she holds it all together. And the reason why we live in Fayetteville, West Virginia, we just wanted to have our kids grow up in an outdoor rec town that was very, very small, but still had enough outside culture where you got people playing music and good restaurants and good bars, and you got people coming from all over the place to run these rivers and rock climbing, that kind of stuff, so that you had a connection to the outside world, but you could also look the other way and get in the wilderness very, very quick. So the first thing I did when we moved to Fayetteville was I bought a farm 20 minutes from downtown. To me, is my wilderness. It's on the Golly River watershed, a real famous whitewater river around here, that I find myself out there twice a week walking around. I got Jack built a little cabin out there, a little trapper's cabin. If it's cold, I can build a fire if I want to get a sandwich or whatever. But to me, it's my womb. It's where I go to think. It's where I go to recharge. It's where I go get that same wild and wonderful feeling 20 minutes from my front door. I'll put steel out at 100, 200, 300, 400, 500, 600, and then I'll practice shooting off the sticks, off my backpack, laying prone, whatever, and I really get tuned in for long distance shooting right there on that knoll in this cow field. That's when, if you're going to play this long distance game, that's when triggers really, really, really matter, because a little movement up there is a lot of movement down here. So. I fell in love with Timney 18 years ago. I fell in love with our culture. I fell in love with the owners. I was all in. So for me to take that step from being a freelance guy for all those years into being a full-time Timney was a natural progression. 3 or 4 years ago, John and I had a conversation. We'd always talked about growing Timney to the next level, but we wanted to make sure we were ready. Did we have enough engineers? Did we have a big enough building? Did we have all the machines we needed? Did we have all the policies and people and procedures down pat to grow this thing? If you think about that farm and it's connected to a trigger manufacturer, they're intertwined. The decisions I've made to grow the company, the decisions I've made to introduce a new platform or introduce a new trigger, and how I'm going to do that. Well, a lot of that didn't come from staring at a light box screen in a cubicle somewhere. To me, that came from inspiration of being in nature. To cultivate this lifestyle of being outside, if a trigger is a little small part of that, I'm in 100%.